Okay, what's up everybody? Welcome back. As always, this is your favorite Shogun here, the one and only Sugi, and today we're going to be talking about this relatively new Netflix original anime series which aired earlier this month called Onimusha. And this is actually based on a game series on PS2, which I have not played myself. I've seen gameplay and reviews obviously, and I did some research while I was doing this review. So it needs to be kind of understood that this anime is not based on any of the games. It doesn't feature any of the characters from the games in this series. So it kind of is a standalone product, which is kind of far away from the games. I mean, yes, it takes place in Japan, roughly on the same time period. It features samurai and also these creatures known as Genma, which are basically humans turning into demons. And it's obviously about fighting demons and obviously superpowers. And that's kind of like where the similarities are aligning. So people who have seen, played the games probably are not going to be seeing anything too familiar. So kind of going in, you probably have to think that this is kind of like loosely inspired out of the Onimusha games. And that's something that a lot of people are not necessarily able to do when they are already familiar with like the source material. Whatever there's a book or a game or something, not always the adaptations are going to be one-to-one, and they are not necessarily trying to adapt the actual source material, but they are heavily inspired by it. And then you obviously have to ask the question, well, would it be better to call this something different than Onimusha? And that's definitely a good answer, but it reminds me quite a lot of the Ninja Scrolls and what is the other one the Basilisk, series. So there's a lot of similarities between those two things. So in case you have seen those and liked, you're probably going to be liking Onimusha. Now, Onimusha is obviously a 3D animation, and probably people giving it a very low rating because of it. And actually, the animation in this one is, in my opinion, very good. Actually, the fight sequences that you're going to be seeing here in the beginning, in the end, very good quality. And this is only an 8-episode series. And this is like the whole story. There's not going to be a season 2. And that's actually the cool thing about it, is that we have a form of a series which actually has a pretty good pacing. It doesn't feel overly long. It's telling a great story, or I would say mediocre story, in a span of 8 episodes where there's good amount of character development and basically just like everything is there packaged up really well in 8 episodes. Because not every anime needs to be 16 episodes long. I mean, I reviewed Pluto probably last time, and I talked about this could have been a bit shorter. I mean, it was a bit dragged out. So I kind of feel the same way about like Onimusha, in the sense that this was a really, really good pacing, and it's like just the right amount of time. And obviously, if you are looking for some other Onimusha stuff, there was an OVA actually done back in 2006, which was produced by Capcom. But I mean, that's pretty much closest that you can get to the game series, which I'm kind of like more interested to now take a look into. So let's kind of break down a bit of the premise here. So this focuses on Miyamoto Musashi, which I do believe is like a real character in Japanese history, if I'm not correct. It sounds very familiar, or it's a play of words of some very. I think there's a character named Musashi somewhere in Japanese history. I think this is like the swordsmith or something, or maybe I'm mixing it up right now. Whatever. And this is basically modeled after a Japanese film icon known as Toshiro Mifune. I am not very familiar with his work. I've probably seen his face. Like, there's a lot of like names I know, but faces I know, but once like the names are thrown out, that doesn't necessarily ring a bell. And basically, this is a story of him basically joining a group of other samurai who are basically, solving out this demon problem that has been infesting this village. And they kind of start off by going into this shrine, or that's where the story starts with Musashi, and he basically has to borrow this like a gauntlet or an arm, which basically gives demonic powers to his wielder. And basically is also kind of turning him into an Oni, which is, I think, an ogre in English. That's probably the most correct translation. So basically, as the gauntlet is on him, it's basically draining his power and turning him more away from humanity. So there's a lot of concept around that, like about what is being a human, what is about being a demon and stuff like that. And then there's like a couple of twists in the journey, and then there's obviously the final fight. in the remaining episodes, and it's very action packed. There's not really a lot of like other things going on. There's maybe one episode which is more about going into a bit of flashbacks and explaining a bit of the characters and stuff like that, their motives, and what exactly is going on with demons. What are these powers coming from, and what are their motives? And it's not like the most. I think it falls a bit flat in the end. If like maybe the main villain is a bit disappointing in a way, but I would have to say that I still like really appreciated the story. And you had so few episodes, but you kind of managed to still kind of build this character development, have these cool fights, and have this sort of like a journey. It kind of reminds me of the I think it's called the Seven Samurai or the 13 Samurai, another anime, which is kind of like a mixture between cyberpunk and like Feudal Age. I have to review it at some point. It's also on Netflix. But like, even though it's like 3D, it's not really like holding it down. There's so many people that are getting really like they're triggered by that stuff. But I think this is like really good 2.5D animation. I mean, not everything is 3D here. I think the flow of animation is really done. It's done by a studio known as Sublimation. I'm not very familiar with them. Oh yeah, they actually did Dragon's Dogma, which was also on Netflix. So not a big fan of that one, to be honest. But it wasn't total bad. But I guess they do a lot of these game adaptations. But it would have been probably cool to see like the actual game be adapted into an anime. I can't really say too much about it. Would it be better? Is it a good story in that sense? But overall, I thought this was a good short series. If you're looking for something not too long, I think this is a great pick. Something to watch on a plane or something. Maybe that one has to be a kind of long flight to basically watch it through. But I think there's like animation. It had also kind of cool opening theme, which sound like Mongolian throat singing. So not very Japanese in a way, but I guess Japanese also kind of have that types of sounds, or they may have done throat singing. Not really sure. If somebody's an expert, let me know. But overall, I have to say that I was positively surprised by Onimusha. It had good characters, good fights, and the story wasn't half bad. I liked more of the beginning things, and maybe the end revelations were kind of meh. It was kind of like this big build up, and I wasn't that big of a fan of that super ending, even though it had some good fights in it. But still, that's my two cents on the matter. But thanks for watching. As always, I will be seeing you in the next review whenever that will be dropping out. Until then, make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I will be seeing you next time.